BioShock was the first game to genuinely ask the question, should video games be considered art? It has fantastic storytelling, amazing graphics, granted nowadays they'd be called poorly aged, incredible art direction, and solid game design and mechanics. It is objectively one of the greatest video games of all time. Still, there was the question everyone was asking when it came out. To most, myself included, we said, yes, video games are a form of art. Paintings tell a story crafted in the moment onto a once blank canvas. Pictures are alike, as they show the very scene as it was then, but only the world we are in now, not what could be. It doesn't show the creativity of the artist's mind like a painting does. Books are much better, but with less dye and arguably more strokes. Movies coincide with this, as they tell a story, put it into motion, giving characters voices and more clear emotions. So too do video games tell a story, but now it allows you to interact with the world around you. The artist can detail the world with lore notes and subtle details, giving life to a world they created, and show their creativity to the fullest. In this day and age of major flops and lackluster games, it seems like there aren't any real good games today. But I come to you today, for I recently found a series of games that stoked that same artistic feeling within, that writer's passion I thought was once lost. The very thing that allows me to make videos and also even write stories. Dare I say, this is an entire franchise that brought back that artistic creativity I thought was lost forever. Today, I give you the Dynamic Games Simulation games. Little is known about Dynamic Games, other than they have developed and published themselves 13 simulator games. They appear to be a rather talented group of developers who have made absolute masterpieces of interactive technological media. And today I want to walk through their entire library of games that they've so lovingly made throughout the years. Cactus Simulator is the first game of 13 Dynamic Games has published so far. It starts off with you as a cactus, in the middle of a perpetual moonlit desert. Around you are several other cacti with varying levels of detail and variety. There's a buffalo skull next to some rocks, some palm trees close by with a well in front of it, possibly meant to be some sort of mirage of some kind, and a lonely silence that fills the air as the moon shines on this quiet landscape. The graphics are nothing to write home about, being basic large polygons, a la Deep Rock or several other games, to say the least. I'll literally Grow Home actually comes to mind. But even still, in this day and age, graphics are not meant to be a sort of make or break for any game. The lighting is seemingly contentious with some players, as it looks to come from an unknown source, whilst the moon is directly behind us. I do believe there is a logical explanation for this, though. The moon has a very reflective surface, and can be seen both during the day and at night. Yet, despite having only one light source, there are pictures that show shadows on some of the lunar rocks bending in a different direction. The same can be said here, I believe, as some shadows bend the same way. Though desert sand doesn't have the same level of magnitude of reflectivity as the moon, it does still manipulate shadows cast from light sources. Overall, Cactus Simulator is a simple game, but that comes with the territory for a new development team. It was their first game, so we can cut them some slack. Further entries in the franchise are much better in quality, mechanics, and design. For this entry, it didn't age quite so well. After releasing Cactus Simulator, the devs went on to make a sequel, and released it on October 6, 2023. Cactus Simulator 2 is a much more graphically demanding and greatly enhanced sequel. Though it doesn't have as much of a following as the previous release, it still gives a great experience. I can see the problems with it, of course, having the score and just plain text below does kind of detract from the experience a small bit, but that's a minor nitpick for me. And also, there is a way of turning it off, too, that I later found out. The time taken to hone their craft in both story, mechanics, graphics, it shows itself immediately. The landscape is far and above improved. The models of the new characters are realistically detailed, and the atmosphere is downright jaw-dropping. And the sound design is incredible. The silence and desolation during the day blends with the calm, peaceful serenity of the night. With very highly detailed lighting, it's even further enhanced with the game's day-night cycle. With the landscape already looking beautifully arid, the sun enhancing that, blazing in the sky, just cherry on top. But when the sun goes down, it feels cold, chilling the player to the bone. Watching the sun dive below the horizon gives a feeling of loss and isolation. And the cold of night doesn't bite with chill, with this isolated feeling. But finally seeing the sun rise once again gives a feeling of warmth and comfort, like resting in a sleeping bag next to a freshly lit burning campfire. And the best part is not only the new characters, they now have an entirely new game mode selection. We now have both arcade mode and realistic mode. A lot of time was put into another mode, and it shows. Final thoughts: Cactus Simulator 2 is a phenomenal game, driving emotions beyond what you would ever expect in a sequel. Absolutely incredible. There was not an immediate release of Cactus Simulator 3, much to fans' dismay. Instead, we saw the team had actually been split into two different groups. One would go on to make Cactus Simulator 2, and the other would go on to make Stump Simulator, just only a few weeks later. Stump Simulator is a bit more cartoony in its art style, but it looks impressively good, of course. But it's also very graphically demanding. I have a very powerful rig. I've got a Ryzen 9 5900X, being a 12-core processor, and an AMD RX 7800 XT, a very powerful graphics card, and 32 gigs of RAM dedicated to the whole system. For this game to run on sub 60 frames, making me have to change the settings from ultra to high, shows how masterfully this game was created. It is a marvel in graphics design and of impeccable quality. There had to be some corners cut for the game's deadline, which is sad, so we don't get to play as any new characters, but personally, I don't think we need them for this game. The world looks great, the environment looks gorgeous, the lighting is impressive. Again, this game looks amazing. And we still got realistic mode too. My closing arguments are as follows. Stump Simulator is a gorgeous game, and I would highly recommend it to anyone. Following the success of Stump Simulator, the devs would go on to make different games, pursuing different avenues and art styles instead of keeping the status quo. On November 8th, 2024, they released Palm Simulator. Now, Palm Simulator is stunning to look at. Though in a more cartoony style compared to the realistic style of previous titles, it still looks fantastic. Placed in the middle of a desert, you're surrounded by your fellow palms, other brush and foliage, and even a forgotten temple, towering pyramid sequestered in a strange sandstone wall oasis. So many questions can be asked about this world, like, why would people build a temple here, of all places? What's its significance? What mysterious details lie within the pyramids? What happened to the builders of this temple? There's so much world building and lore immediately when you first enter. For the first time also, we even get stunning animations. The way the player character moves around the world is very detailed, dynamic. Ambient foliage sway and weave with the wind subtly. The lighting from the sun feels hot and scathing, while the shadows cast from other palms feels cool and soothing. Unfortunately, the day-night cycle had to be removed, so there's only perpetual daylight. But the devs did still include realistic mode. In conclusion, Palm Simulator is a great entry into the franchise, but lacking some features does detract from the overall experience. Not by a ton, but still a noticeable amount. Released on November 22nd, just a few weeks after Palm Simulator, Dynamic Games went back to a more realistic world style, and blessed us with Coconut Simulator. I was most excited to play Coconut Simulator as it was the first game that introduced me to the franchise. Immediately, I was baffled, awestruck. The graphics looked amazing, the scenery detailed and vibrant, but the one thing I wasn't expecting was sound. For the first time, we get to hear waves cresting onto the shoreline, seagulls in the air, and a beautiful serenity washed over me, taking with it my woes and worries. In the distance, I saw sharks breaking the water's surface, circling around their prey. There was a small dock to a tiny fishing village lying quietly still and dormant. A small shop with clay pots was close by, selling wares to interested customers soon to come. This world was vibrant, interesting, it was alive, and I was here, witnessing a jaw-droppingly crafted world. What made this experience even better was realistic mode. Putting my final thoughts in for this masterpiece is difficult, as no words can truly describe the feelings I felt playing it. It was incredible, awe-inspiring, downright breathtaking. 10 out of 10. I eagerly await the news for a potential prequel entry. Much to everyone's shock, a third game was released in the Dynamic Simulator franchise, Weed Simulator. Released on December 6th, Weed Simulator is a game where you simulate yourself as a strange plant in a large forest clearing. Close by are some of your brethren, several different trees and flowers, and off in the distance is a massive mountain range. Again, it's in the cartoony style, but the world in color is vibrant. The field of green surrounding you is broken up by patches of colorful flowers dotting the landscape. But in this field, there are some intriguing landmarks. There's a strange red tree close by, sectioned off from the rest of the forest. Its significance is unknown, but enticing. There's an odd rock formation in the distance, too, building the world around us is mysterious, almost omen-like. Not only that, there's also some old fencing around a path. Clearly, there are people in this world, but where could they be? Did they abandon this world? Could they no longer be here? Were they wiped out? There is realistic mode to look at, which may include some answers. A great darkness surrounded me, and I was left with more questions than answers. During this time, I reflected upon myself, my life, my future, my decisions and choices, all of which led me to this very moment. Did I regret any of it? Was I doomed to continue down this path? Where was I even headed? What would become of me when I reached the end of the trail? To close this off, Weed Simulator gave me much to think about. Amazing graphics, beautifully built world design, truly incredible. The devs at Dynamic Games have been busy during Q4 of 2024 as they swiftly pushed out another game. Watermelon Simulator released on December 13th, and it takes us back to the same beach, or what looks like the same beach landscape as Coconut Simulator with more realistic graphics, but now close to what looked like the small fishing village previously. The graphics continue to impress, with its lighting, detailed models, the physics engine. The models look incredibly lifelike and highly detailed. deeply immersing the player in the world around them. The lighting casts soft shadows and scatters about in all directions. Makes me almost wonder if they implemented ray tracing into their game engine, which would be a very welcome addition. The village is small and cozy, giving us a glimpse into the life of many of its residents. Though no people are present, it does look very antiquated. It reminds me much of Skyrim, in which small villages are, well, populated, sure, but they seem mostly disconnected from much of the outside world influence. They have their own struggles, their own politics. Small as they may be, it's still important to the people there. Being in a small town myself, I can empathize with such minuscule squabbles cropping up. For once, I thought they wouldn't implement new characters or other game modes due to its very short release date, but I was proven wrong, as realistic mode returns once more. In short, Watermelon Simulator showed off great new heights for what would come out in the future, making fans excited for what would come next. The last game to come out in 2024 was Grass Life Sim, a troubling title to release, it seems. Just off of the Steam page, it appears to be in a very simple game engine. Grass Life Sim came out on December 20th, and it's very simple in both design and fidelity. The trees are basic, the ground and rocks are polygonal, the water is static, the character model is lackluster. It's a shame to see such a dull entry into the franchise. Still, the devs did the best they could to make this playable. It just sucks so little made it in. Nothing is confirmed, but I think a lot of what was to be implemented was left on the cutting room floor. It could be due to a major time crunch, perhaps a rough sort of workload, maybe even a dev strike. But the game and the players were the ones that suffered the most because of what happened. I found some enjoyment from the game, including its realistic mode, but I think it just needed more time in the oven. For some time, this was the last entry of the franchise. It was a shame to see such talent be lost due to whatever issues were present in the studio. Months went by, and little had come from Dynamic Games. But, out of nowhere, on August 29th, 2025, Stump Simulator 2 shadow dropped. Looking at the Steam page, it gave us so much more content compared to the last entries. Ambient sound effects, new playable characters, a dynamic day-night cycle. They even had an original soundtrack. Stepping in, I was thoroughly amazed, simply shocked at the level of detail and care put into this game. The ambience was immersive, the graphics were incredible, the soundtrack was beautifully composed, the landscape was breathtaking, the lighting engine was perfected, and realistic mode too? This was it. Peak. Absolute cinema. Fans flocked to this game and took wondrous joy in playing it. And now, I can include myself among them. I've played many games in my lifetime, but this was truly one of the best I've ever played. To close this chapter, Stump Simulator 2 is a roaring sequel to the previous Stump Simulator 1, and is the perfect game for everyone to play. Personally, I don't know if they'll ever make a Stump Simulator 3, and I don't know if fans would really want one anyways. They've already made a masterpiece for the series. One month after releasing Stump Simulator 2, dedicated fans of the Dynamic Games Simulator franchise were shocked to see a new release of a beloved entry. It was graphically enhanced, optimized to perfection, rebuilt from the ground up in a new engine. Cactus Simulator was remade for modern hardware. When I first entered, I was amazed at how much had changed. Perpetual moonlight was but a distant past. Before me was a massive field of baked silica, several types of cacti scattered about, a small dry oasis, and the sun beaming down onto me. It was hot. I felt the searing heat burn my skin. The sand was scorched by the ionizing radiation of the massive ball of plasma that was our source of life as we know it. I dared not bear the thought to even touch it. The fact that life could thrive in this hellish place told me I was not meant to. The day went on, for no modicum of mercy was ever conceived to be granted to me. Soon, the sun fell, bearing for the horizon. I expected I'd be glad about it, to be relieved of the invisible scorching flames that licked at my skin. But instead, I felt a creeping dread gnaw at my psyche, for I knew what would come after it was gone. For a time, the heat felt like warmth of a campfire, soothing and welcome, but it was quickly snuffed out as the sun fell into the horizon. I watched as light receded from the sky, and I was left in darkness. Soon, the sting of flame and heat was replaced with the bite of ice and cold. I loathed the sweltering, unforgiving fire, sapping away my strength until I'd give up and let myself boil and melt away. But I couldn't rest revitalized from my weariness, as the freezing, unshakable cold was waiting to continue where the heat left off. The only light that guided me was that of the moon, taunting me with its glow, like a faint flame in a swamp. It felt like the universe was toying with me, giving me light with no warmth, a cure with no real medicine. But then, from the horizon, another sphere of light rose. Lying there, I felt that which I was missing, and it was returning me from the brink. The warmth washed over me, granting me strength once more. I felt alive. My blood was flowing through my veins and arteries, my muscles loosened and contracted with no resistance. I felt like I could spring into action again as the creeping cold melted off me slowly. Though there was nothing to look forward to, it seemed pointless to revel in this feeling. I didn't care. I was alive, and I felt it all around my body. I pressed on with my journey. To what end it had was for me to find myself. Cactus Simulator Remake is phenomenal. I have no words to describe it. It is amazing. To my surprise, a horror game was made by Dynamic Games called Pumpkin Simulator on October 25th. What surprised me most was that it was free. Now, I've always been one for good horror games, and I enjoyed diving deep into the emotions and actions of fear, and myself and others. I even have an entire playlist on analyzing fear in video games, which I recommend you should go check out, after this video, of course. I was excited to see what this game had in store for me. Already, the atmosphere is enriching. You're set in a dark forest, barely lit up by the moonlight. There's candles dotted around the place, eerie landmarks in certain areas, and the trees block line of sight all around you. The graphics are lackluster, but they work surprisingly well for this game. They can be put aside if you have good atmosphere and game mechanics normally. And for a horror game, most importantly, you need a threat. This strange apparition is watching you, only from a distance. It's constantly lying in wait, peering at you, waiting for you to make a move. But if you remain still, it will simply watch. Many times I thought it did come after me. I braced myself for a jump scare every time I turned away or wasn't looking at it. But I remained still, and it just watched me. I looked into the game further and found it actually had a DLC character. Immediately I had to buy it because, of course I had to. I also decided to play on realistic mode with it too. Trying to write about my experience in Pumpkin Simulator is difficult. It was terrifying many times. I have never felt such fear in my life before. It was a frightening experience, and I would highly recommend looking into this title. Be warned though, it is not for the faint of heart. We're reaching the end of the lineup of Dynamic Games' masterpieces, but we're also reaching for some of the best too simultaneously. On the docket now is Coconut Simulator 2, released November 22nd. It's unsurprising why Coconut Simulator 2 is a fan favorite of the franchise. I mean, the graphics are at their best here, nearly identical to real life. The lighting is fantastic, with the game's dynamic day-night cycle. Again, the best in the franchise. And the environment is phenomenal, being set in a small island village. Many times, the game looked picturesque. It felt like I was on vacation at a small island resort, enjoying the beach to the fullest. Once again, we have different characters, dynamic sound effects, even a custom music track too. Editing this video with the game in the background was a feeling I could never put into words. The calmness and serenity I felt, making cuts, adding markers, tuning the sounds, into something I don't think I'll ever feel again. But playing Coconut Simulator 2 is where the real magic is at, especially on realistic mode. I hate to end this segment, as I want to keep talking about the game, but the script is already long enough, and I really would rather not make editing me do any more work than he has to. All in all, Coconut Simulator 2 remains my favorite of the franchise. Full stop. Finally, we make it to Grass Life Sim 2, the newest release as of January 14th, 2026. Sitting at a 95% rating on Steam, I had high hopes for it. Jumping right in, I saw there was a host of new characters, all custom-made, highly detailed. I could not wait to unlock them. But when I got in-game, my frame rate just tanked immediately. The game looked stunning, as expected, but reaching to barely above 15 frames was just unacceptable. So I took to lowering the settings to high. It worked for Stump Simulator, so I couldn't see why it wouldn't work here too. But I still saw below 20 frames. I checked my graphics card settings to make sure that everything was okay. There was nothing at all strange or weird. I tweaked with so many different settings constantly. It didn't help. So I caved, and I brought the settings down to medium. And to my shock, I still couldn't reach 30 frames, even at medium settings. Surely this was something on my end, I said. It couldn't be because of the game, right? I closed everything on my PC, every browser, every application, every window that was doing something. Nothing. I put the game's priority to the highest possible setting, sub 30 frames. I scoured the internet, desperate to find a solution. Some forum post or discussion board had to have had the answer to solve this, surely. But I found nothing. There was not a single iota of a solution anywhere. I was devastated. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I can't say anything good about Grass Life Sim 2. It's horribly unoptimized, completely unplayable, totally not worth the price at all. I couldn't even stomach playing realistic mode. That's how bad it was, man. It appears the Grass Life Sim series is cursed, plagued with problems bound to happen. I had high hopes for it having a resurgence in the limelight, but...
Hey! What the fuck are you doing?
Oh, shit. Oh, my goodness. That was incredible. I missed this, man. Holy shit. Look, I know I've been gone for a while, and I'm sorry. I know it's been 3 months since I posted a video. I know I should have been working on a lot more stuff a lot sooner. I know this was a spur of the moment. This just kind of out of nowhere, but this was so incredibly fun. This was so fun to work on, so fun to make, and I regret almost nothing. I know it's been a long time that I've posted something. I know, I'm sorry. I think the big sort of reason as to why is because our dog here has been suffering for a long time. She finally passed away at some point, which I think has helped a lot of us to... I think it's helped to revitalize a lot of us, to make us feel a lot better of everything. We didn't realize how bad it was, but I think we're feeling a lot better, all of us here, and I especially am too. So, I think it's good that we're finally back in once more, making videos, because I feel like I've had this revitalization of creativity back, and I think it's just... I enjoyed making this. I enjoyed making this video. It was so fun to do. It was so fun to make. It was an absolutely incredible time making all this. I first found out about the entire Dynamic Games library from a fucking TikTok, of all places. And it was so fun to work on this, because I found out about that and I was like, you know what, I'm going to look into it, because this just seems stupid as hell. It just seems completely dumb as shit, and I wanted to work on something. I was like, you know what, I'm going to do it, I'm going to make this for April 1st, and we're just going to see what happens, and we're just going to make it. And I realized how much it was going to be. It was going to be like $35, and I was like, you know what, if I have like close to double that, if I have like $60 or so, then I'll do it. If not, I'm going to hold off on it. I swear to God, I seriously had $58, and I was like, God damn it. I told my mother about this. I told Ma about this and everything, and she was just like, you know, it's like, all right, fine, go and see what happens and everything. I look at my bank, and it's $58 fucking dollars, and I'm like, God damn it. I said it's so close. Fuck. Totally worth it. Totally worth it. It was so... God damn it. It was genuinely so fun to make this. I enjoyed getting a lot of the music and doing the voiceover, doing the writing for everything. The Cactus Simulator remake part, where I got to actually write, was so fun. I enjoyed that thoroughly. That was so incredibly fun to make that. Like, I'm not a writer by any right, but my God, that was one of the best moments I had right there. Pairing that with Claire de Lune was just incredible. I enjoyed that thoroughly. That was so incredibly fun to make. It was so incredibly fun to write. I miss this, man. I miss this sort of like giddy feeling I get when I write about things. I miss this sort of, you know, when I get to write and I get to edit. I miss this, man. And I'm glad it's finally back. Thank you so much for watching. I genuinely appreciate it. Anyone out there that watches any of my videos, I really appreciate it. We recently hit about 300 subs, which is just absolutely insane. And I can't really fathom just the idea that people would be willing to watch my sort of videos. It's absolutely insane. But I appreciate everyone that watches this. I hope you enjoyed this video as well. If at all you did, leave a like on this video, tell me in the comments below, or talk with some other very civilized people on the internet. Share this with friends, family, anyone who you think might get a laugh out of all of this, out of this complete absurdity. And if at all you've watched like 6 or 7 of my videos, please consider subscribing to the channel. I would very much appreciate having you come by again, watching this and enjoying what I make. In terms of plans for what I'm going to make, I do have some ideas. I have one video. I'm helping the Toxic Rose, my friend Rose. I'm working with her right now to make a video. So I'm going to do that for a little bit, and then hopefully, after some time, I'm going to work on and finish a Dead Space video, hopefully before the middle of May. And then after like the middle part of June, I'm going to try and work on getting a tier list video done. We're going to do the auto-loading shotguns. We're going to do a tier list video there. That's going to be great. And then we're going to see what happens from there. That's the plan right now. That's what I got going on. I have a lot of other projects going on. I have a lot of other ideas that I just need to, at some point, figure out and get going and all. But slowly and carefully, I will work on those. For the time being, I'm glad to be back. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope to see you again. So please, stay safe out there.